The story begins in the ruins of post-war Berlin, once the proud capital of Nazi Germany. Now it's a scarred land divided by ideology. East belongs to the Soviet Union, the Red Zone. West Berlin stands as a democratic island, surrounded by communist territory. For powers, the US, UK, France, and USSR control a city that's no longer whole. But beneath the surface, tension simmers. Thousands flee from east to west every week, chasing freedom. Doctors, engineers, families disappearing overnight. The East German regime grows desperate to stop the bleeding. Moscow watches closely, fearing the collapse of its satellite. And as 1961 dawns, a secret plan takes shape. A wall will rise where freedom and oppression meet. The plan had a name, Operation Rose. It wasn't about beauty, it was about control. On the night of August 12, 1961, the operation began. East German police, soldiers, and workers moved silently through the city. Barbed wire rolls, concrete blocks, and machine guns appeared in the dark. Berliners went to sleep in one world and woke in another. Trains stopped mid-route. Families found themselves suddenly cut off, mothers on one side, sons on the other. The border between East and West turned into a prison overnight. No announcement, no warning, only silence and fear. A line of division became a wall of destiny, and the heart of Europe began to harden. Morning brought disbelief. West Berliners crowded at the new border, shouting names across the wire. Some cried, others threw flowers, desperate for any contact. East Berlin guards stood unmoved. Orders strict and cold, no crossing, no communication, no exceptions. Tears mixed with anger, and the first escapes began. A man leapt from a second-story window to the west. Crowds cheered as he landed safely below. Others weren't as lucky. Bullets stopped them mid-dash. Freedom had become a deadly gamble overnight. Even the air felt divided now, and the world was watching. Inside East Berlin, propaganda spread fast. Newspapers called the wall a protective barrier. The government claimed it stopped fascist infiltration from the West. But ordinary citizens knew the truth. It was a cage. Rumors whispered through neighborhoods. Who escaped? Who was caught? Families were divided. Letters returned unopened. Church bells rang for unity, but prayers couldn't cross borders. Shops near the line emptied, their doors sealed by guards. Children asked where their grandparents had gone. No one dared answer. The streets grew quiet, except for patrol boots on pavement. A gray stillness settled over East Berlin. Hope began to feel like treason. West Berlin woke in fury. Mayor Willy Brandt called it a wall of shame. Crowds gathered at the Brandenburg Gate, waving flags and chanting. American, British, and French forces stood tense, but restrained. No one wanted World War III over barbed wire. Western media captured every tear, every scream. Headlines read, "Berlin cut in half." Journalists called it the Iron Curtain made real. U.S. President Kennedy sent strong words, but avoided direct conflict. West Berlin became a fortress of democracy surrounded by stone. Freedom, now visible and fragile. The Cold War had found its cruelest symbol. Despite the wall, the human spirit resisted. Some tunneled beneath it, through sewers and basements. Others built ladders, leaped from windows, or used fake uniforms. One couple zipped across a cable tied between buildings. Every success became legend. Every failure became a funeral. East German guards, the Grenztruppen, were told to shoot, but some couldn't. Some let people through, at their own peril. Each escape echoed across the divided world. Berlin became a stage for courage and cruelty, and every brick whispered a question. How far will people go to be free? Entire families were split overnight. Husbands separated from wives, parents from children. Telephone lines between East and West went dead. Grandparents saw their grandchildren only through binoculars across the border. Weddings were canceled, funerals missed, each letter censored, each photograph examined. Some stood daily at the wall, waving or weeping across no man's land. Hope became routine. Heartbreak became normal. The wall wasn't just concrete, it was emotional exile. West Berliners called it a scar across the soul. East Berliners called it the wall we never asked for, and both sides felt the pain of silence. As months passed, the barbed wire became brick. Concrete slabs rose higher, thicker, stronger. Watchtowers appeared, their silhouettes haunting the skyline. Searchlights swept the death strip, an empty zone of sand and mines. Guard dogs patrolled beneath the walls. Machine guns faced, inward, not outward. The regime called it progress. For Berliners, it was imprisonment perfected. No one could cross without state permission. The city's heartbeat slowed behind concrete veins. The wall was no longer temporary. It was eternal, at least. That's what they thought. East German media praised the wall as necessary for peace. They showed smiling workers and clean streets. Behind the cameras, poverty deepened. Shortages of food, medicine, and trust spread fast. Posters glorified the People's Republic, but faith was fading. Art became protest, songs banned, writers silenced. A whisper could be betrayal. The Stasi listened everywhere. The regime's greatest fear wasn't the West, it was its own people. Yet, even amid fear, small acts of defiance bloomed. Graffiti on hidden corners, poems in secret meetings, truth, whispered quietly, never stopped echoing. West Berlin shone with color and neon. East Berlin dimmed in gray routine. Two worlds side by side, but galaxies apart. In the West, pop culture, jazz, and freedom thrived. In the East, ration cards and party loyalty ruled. At night, the wall glowed under floodlights like a scar of fire. Tourists in the West took photos. Soldiers in the East took aim. Children grew up never knowing the other half of their city. Maps were redrawn. Hearts were not. For the first time, Berliners began saying over there, about their own neighbors, a city had lost its reflection. Checkpoint Charlie became the world's most dangerous crossing. American and Soviet tanks once faced each other there, guns ready. A single wrong move could have started a war. Civilians watched in horror as soldiers stared through gun sights. Then, after 16 tense hours, both sides pulled back, but the message was clear. Berlin was ground zero of the Cold War. Passports stamped with caution, eyes watched every move. Each crossing was a test of nerves and loyalty. Spies, defectors, journalists all passed through Charlie's gate. It became both a symbol of fear and defiance. A small street corner turned into global history. Every photo taken there told a story of courage. By the mid-1960s, a new generation was growing up behind it. They played in its shadow. Too young to remember a united city, school books taught them the wall was protection. But curiosity is stronger than propaganda. Teenagers climbed rooftops to glimpse the forbidden. West, some tried to swim across canals. Few survived. Music from Western radio leaked through static, a forbidden thrill. They danced quietly in basements, defying silence. Dreams crossed borders where bodies could not. And with each passing year, cracks appeared, not in concrete, but in faith. The youth of East Berlin began to ask, why? A question no regime could forever suppress. By the 1970s, the wall had become more than Berlin's burden. It symbolized the world's division. East versus West, communism versus capitalism. Tourists visited, touched it, and left with quiet disbelief. Artists painted peace murals on the western side. Politicians posed, promising hope they couldn't yet deliver. Behind every camera flash lay the pain of those still trapped. For East Germans, the wall was invisible only in dreams. For the world, it became the face of tyranny. The wall of shame now stood in textbooks and speeches, a warning written in stone and sorrow. It was not just a barrier, it was a mirror of humanity's failure, and everyone could see their reflection in it. By the 1980s, the cracks grew louder. Economic decline, protests, and whispers of reform spread. The Soviet Union itself began to falter under Gorbachev's changes. In East Berlin, people gathered in churches, demanding freedom. Songs replaced slogans, candles replaced rifles, and fear began to fade. Mass protests erupted in Leipzig, then in Berlin. The government could no longer silence millions. The wall that once felt eternal began to tremble. The world held its breath once again. The unthinkable was becoming possible. November 9, 1989. History reversed itself. Crowds stormed the checkpoints. Guards overwhelmed and confused. Someone shouted, "The border is open." And for the first time in 28 years, Berliners crossed freely. East met West in tears, laughter, and disbelief. Families reunited. Strangers embraced. Music filled the air. People climbed the wall and began tearing it down with hammers. Each chip of concrete was a heartbeat of freedom. The symbol of division became rubble of unity. Berlin, once the center of the Cold War, became its ending. From stone to dust, from fear to hope, the wall that divided the world finally fell.